Round 2 is upon us in the Premier League, and on Sunday, Stamford Bridge sets the stage for Chelsea against Spurs. Chelsea have lost just one of the last 32 league meetings at home with Spurs, and that included getting the better of them last season. As we just take a look at the odds for this one, and welcoming Craig Burley and Nedum Anua as well. Despite all those stats, Craig, you are predicting a Spurs win this time around.
Yeah, I just think there's a different mentality there. They've had all their business done early. Obviously, there's still a lot of talk about Chelsea and potential for 2 or 3 transfers coming in. Tuchel's not quite satisfied with the squad. That's public knowledge. Tottenham, on the other hand, there's no rumours about them bringing anybody else in. They got their work done early. They got some money to spend. It kept Antonio Conte happy. They had a well-documented pre-season that we discussed on length in this show, and it was a tough, hard, no-nonsense pre-season, but that's the way the manager works. And they got a good start last week. Wasn't the greatest performance, but they managed to get 4 goals. And I know the record at Stamford Bridge, as you mentioned, is pretty awful, but I just get a feeling with this Tottenham team is that they've gone there scared in previous years. And even last year with Conte, it was, well, I don't quite think I've got enough. Well, he's got pretty much a player for every position now coming off the bench. They're strong, he has options. And I think there's been a sea change in the mentality within this Tottenham team. There's more of a belief. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we might see a bit of that early on at the weekend.
Do you agree with Craig's prediction, Nedum?
Well, I think Chelsea will be fine, but I think he's right in terms of talking about that mentality that Conte is bringing to Spurs. I think when we saw them play there last year, there were times when they looked really outplayed, looked like they could never catch up to how Chelsea were. But as they sort of developed through this pre-season, you see the way that they're playing now, the confidence that they have. And, you know, the odds are one thing, but I think there's a sentiment that Spurs are ahead of Chelsea right now. So with that, they're going to arrive at the stadium and believe that they can get a result, you know, because why shouldn't they? They have great players. They have a manager who believes in them, the players who believe in themselves. You know, they've obviously run those 42 lengths in pre-season as well. So obviously nothing's going to stop them. But I get it. But then for me, I think Chelsea, for as much as they are losing players and they are still trying to be part of this almost like rebuild, you look at the starting 11 they can put out, and, you know, they've got some quality in there. You know, it's good for them to have people like Reece James and Chilwell back being fully fit, because I think a lot of the game revolves around them. So I believe that, you know, Chelsea will have enough. And when you sort of see the history behind it, you know, it does seem crazy that Chelsea have been so dominant over Spurs at Stamford Bridge. But, you know, I'm expecting something similar this weekend, unfortunately, regardless of the fact that Spurs are having their first true test in this sort of time where there's greater expectation upon them.
So it's a 1-1 draw for Nedum. Craig obviously going for the Tottenham win in this one. What about you, Shaka?
I've gone for Spurs win as well. I think now is the perfect time for Spurs to play Chelsea. Chelsea have had this kind of uncertain pre-season about them. They got a few, most notably Sterling in the summer, but then it's been hit and miss ever since that. And my greatest concern for them, I thought you saw play out real time against a very poor Everton team. Where are the goals going to come from? In the end, it took a penalty to break that deadlock. On the other side, though, I think Spurs trending in the right direction, certainly during the course of this calendar year. Conte with a full pre-season with this side. I think this is as good as you will get from Spurs. So those two things coming together, Spurs on the up and Chelsea still trying to find their way, I see Spurs going to Stamford Bridge and getting a win.
Well, when it came to the pre-season... Go on, Craig.
No, I was going to say, I think there is a chance that, you know, Spurs are able to take a little bit more control in games this year. You know, Bentancur has bedded himself in. I think Bissouma is a terrific player. He probably won't start. He didn't start last weekend, but I think eventually it will be Bissouma in the side, and who he plays alongside him, we'll wait to see. But I think he's an excellent player. So I think they're able to get a little bit more control of the ball than previous games. And I think the difference between the sides, if Spurs can get the game right at the back defensively, and we know he's made some changes in that part of the team this summer, is Chelsea have a lack of a cutting edge. Obviously, Werner went back to Leipzig. He couldn't cut the mustard in England. Lukaku went back to Inter. He couldn't cut it last season. And they've got some talented players, but they really don't have any natural goal threat up front. Not to say they don't have a threat, but they don't have the natural goal threat that Spurs have. Even if Spurs were to take Harry Kane off and bring Richarlison on, that's still a huge threat. So the other side for Chelsea is, can Raheem Sterling produce the form of Man City? He's not playing with as good of players. He's not playing in a team that's going to dominate as much as Man City. So that's going to be a big ask in him to keep bringing those kind of stats to the table in what is a poorer team than he's been used to playing in. And so I just think from Tottenham's perspective, with the threat they've got up front, that there is a big chance for them to lay a marker down for the season here on Sunday.
We just saw Craig's pre-season predictions there. He doesn't have Chelsea making the top 4 this season. A reminder, Nedum, if you have them in the top 4 come the end of the season with your predictions.
Well, I've forgotten. You asked me a couple of weeks ago, sometimes I move with the wind, that sort of thing. But I think one thing about these predictions, it's the timing of it. We look at Chelsea now and they don't feel like they've really got the momentum that, say, Spurs have. But if they sign a couple of key players between now and the end of this window, we could see them in a completely different light. But unfortunately, because we've handed in our predictions already, we could be made to look quite stupid. But that's, that's football. That's what it is. That's how it goes.
6, you've got them.
In that moment, that's just what it was. And then don't worry about Man United in 4th. We don't need to discuss that. But yeah, in that moment, it made sense. But yeah, so let's not worry too much about it. Obviously, Chelsea want to be replacing for some of the players that they have. And when you look at the team, and I think Craig's right, they want to be successful, but do they have 80 goals in them to be able to be really competitive at the top of the Premier League in terms of the first 2 or 3? As it stands, it doesn't feel like it, but maybe they've got a plan, and maybe they bring in 1-2 players between now and the end of that window, which could give them that sense whereby they can go into any game and know they're going to win. And I meant to ask Craig a question as well in regards to Spurs playing Chelsea this weekend at Stamford Bridge. Is Conte going to take a front foot approach, or is he going to go more defensive like he has done in some of the bigger games they played last season, would you think?
No, I don't think Nedum will. I think they have the ability to get on the front foot a little bit more, but a leopard, as they say, never changes his spots, and I don't think he'll veer too much away from that. I just think they have the ability to take a little bit more control. I think sometimes they ceded, in these bigger games, they ceded a lot of possession. I know they had some success at Manchester City last year doing that. But that was really against the odds. So I don't think he'll change too much, but he has the ability to make a change to their plan within the squad if he chooses to do so, and that's down to the players, as you can see, that they brought in over the summer. I mean, these are quality players that he can bring off the bench.
So we just heard Nedum talking about how things can change. Go on.
If somebody had a brain in this outfit, they'd ask us for our predictions after August transfer window. But,
well, that wouldn't be any fun, would it? What fun would that be? Listen, Nedum was just talking about living in the moment. So let's say that the likes of Aubameyang, a Frankie de Jong, a Wesley Fofana come in. Does that change your prediction? Will you then put Chelsea up in the top 4?
If they get Aubameyang and a Frankie de Jong, I think, for me, my greatest concern around Chelsea remains around goals. And as much as we're talking about a team that finished 3rd last season with 2 misfiring strikers who have now departed, so not really a whole lot of change there. I just think there's a more concerted effort from Spurs. I think Arsenal are much better than we saw them last season. At points last season, I thought not only would they finish 4th, I thought they had a chance of finishing 3rd, but inexperience cost them. And I think that lack of direction in their transfer policy so far this summer ultimately will cost Chelsea, because Spurs and Arsenal, and I know we're only 1 game in, have looked like all they promised to be.
We are only
when did you do those predictions, Hislop?
A couple of weeks ago, at some point.
You got the benefit of a week gone, Craig, and then you got to make yours.
Oh, well, I was going to say, I think Shaka copied me, but if we did them 2 weeks ago, I must have copied him.
Yeah, no, you've been on holiday for the last 3 weeks.
3.5
weeks. Which is rather worrying if I'm copying a goalie.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.